think Sandy's heard the voices of the people, that there's a lot of people asking her to throw her hat in the ring to run for mayor. And I think we're having great success in moving forward in that agenda. And I think we can give Corey Mason better than a run for his money. Personally, I think Corey Mason is beatable.
And I know what you're thinking out there. Now we got 4 of them.
We're growing.
Yeah, we've expanded by a third, up by 33.33%. Way over on the left, we got Mr. George Myers, our producer, Mr. Jim Spodek, your host, Dr. Ken Yorgan, and a special guest, Mr. Harry Waite. Welcome to the show, Harry.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah.
Pleasure being here.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. Now, we brought Harry in because we spoke last week about a citizen who filed a complaint against the city attorney in Racine, and it was a pretty damning complaint, actually. And it turns out that Harry here is the guy that wrote that complaint and submitted it, and it's created a flurry of activity in the city, and there's a big response going on down there in City Hall. We're sure, we know that there's a reaction to it. And Harry, what initially inspired you anyway to what was your interest? How did it get raised to the level of, like, I better do something here? Because not everybody gets inspired to file a complaint, and you did a good job of it, and it's creating a ruckus.
Well, thank you. I like creating a ruckus. In 2011, I got inspired to get back into being a watchdog in government when Michael Niskus was the district attorney. And so I've always had this interest in Racine County and its government. And, fast forward up to 2018, I'm reading an article in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and lo and behold, it's involving a secret court, Sandy Widener. And I was in shock and awe reading this article, wondering how an open records request could ever become a sealed court case.
It is a good question.
Well, it's interesting you also had that perspective, too. Most citizens would look at it.
Well, you know what?
I want to flip back a little bit and maybe give you a little bit of your personal history, how it is that you became interested in legal things like this. What drew you into the legal arena? Because you're in the arena now.
Yeah,
There's no question about it. Yeah, I know that you have been, but what pulled you in there? I mean, what is your background? What was your education? And did you have any legal law education?
None. I'm just a common citizen like anybody else who took interest in government, specifically the Racine County court system, when I realized in 2011 just how corrupt it was with some of the judges, and how it was a pay-to-play system, and how prosecutors had special considerations from the judges that pro se litigants didn't have. So I became very involved in the legal system. I had to learn law, and fortunately I had a great mentor, an attorney up in Milwaukee, who helped me with a lot of my legal proceedings, and he forced me to learn law.
Good. Well, now you guys were both started to say something, and I kind of cut you off because I wanted to get a little background on Harry. So,
well, one of the things I wanted to kind of bring up was, I met Harry actually. I kind of knew of Harry. I don't know. We kind of passed probably things in different areas
over the years. Yes.
Yeah. But he actually came up to me and introduced me because I had been kicked out of that court earlier on, and when you came and said, you had filed a motion to open that court up, and you came up and here's a motion I just filed with the court, and I'm thinking, this guy's got big old kahunas, man. I had to go, damn, dude.
And of course, the case you're talking about is the Sandy Widener case. Yeah.
So that's when I thought, this is great. And actually, I just want to make a point. Harry's the one that opened up that case. I know the media came on board, but they only came on at that point with a letter. Harry was in the courtroom, and I remember sitting there, and the judge said, "Who is Harry Waite?" And Harry raised his hand, "I'm Harry Waite." And he opened up that court, and that's the reason why that court got open. Obviously, if it wasn't for Sandy Widener moving it forward and having open it up herself, but Harry was the one that was actually able to get that courtroom access.
Was that the first exposure that you had to the case that Sandy Widener was involved in? Was the article in the Journal Sentinel, or had you been?
No,
like,
that's
tangentially?
correct. I was just in shock when I read what Bruce Vilmetti had wrote. I had no idea that Sandy was involved in any legal case, and especially an open records case where she filed a writ of mandamus demanding to have documents, and both the city and the city found a complicit judge to seal the entire court case, which was entirely illegal.
Well, the thing that I like about what you did, it was something that you said, and you said you realized that she was in a very dark place.
Yes.
Which is a very good way of describing it, and
Yes.
that she needed somebody.
Well, fortunately, Bruce Vilmetti got the word out, and fortunately, the collective news media came in with a motion shortly afterwards, after that contempt hearing, and they got themselves involved. And reality is, I'm so far out there, I made the collective news media look like a reasonable choice to have involved in the courts rather than somebody like me.
So they basically, you filed with the appeals court? Is that
Correct, twice.
Okay, twice. And both times they rejected you?
That's correct. I filed my first case in with the Court of Appeals. It was rejected. Then I filed a motion for en banc, where I wanted all the Court of Appeal justices to hear the case, and that was denied also.
But eventually, something that has happened is the appeals court took a look at all of the information that had been submitted. There was all of these emails, all of these documents that the court down in Racine had sealed.
As alleged privileged documents.
Right. As in the public interest, the judge decided to seal all of those records. And because of what you did, the appellate court looked at it and said, well, here, Judge Gashikevitz, take another look at this and make sure that everything here on this inventory is things that you think should be sealed. And what happened after that?
After that, they released, I'm going to guess, 98% of the documents for public scrutiny, which really should have been done. The sad part about this is the Court of Appeals is still conducting the court case as a sealed court. The Court of Appeals had no business really even sealing the court record. This was a huge blunder on the Court of Appeals just to take a case and seal it. When I say sealing it, they withheld the party names of the suit, the docketing number of the case, and the complete court file. And it's really illegal according to the U.S. Constitution, to the First Amendment, and of course we have several Wisconsin statutes that grant Wisconsin citizens a right to oversee the courts. And all those were denied. So a lot of our rights were
attacked. They actively suppressed all that information.
Correct.
They did not disseminate it out to the public, which they're required to do.
Not all the documents have been released from Gaskergevich's court, but it went to the Court of Appeals, even though it's in the Court of Appeals. Should not the Court of Appeal judges say, listen, everything's open, should be open to the public? I mean, can they at this point say, let's open up everything before we even review and give an opinion on the appeals, on our appeals decision? Can they do that?
Well, if your middle name is God, you can.
Yeah.
So that's one of the problems that we have with judges. Their middle name is God.
Well, the appellate court, what his question was, I think they do have the power.
Obviously the power, Judge Gasikorovich obviously had the power to seal the court, but was it right? Was it legal?
Yeah. Well,
was it ethical?
That's what the appeal is all about, whether it should be sealed or not.
Why did
a lot of it?
You got to still ask this next question: is why is the Court of Appeals sealed?
Well, my answer would be because they haven't made the decision yet.
But can they make that decision prior to? I mean, do they?
Well,
why should it go to them sealed? That's my question.
Well, that's just
it shouldn't have.
No. But I mean, why can't they just say, we're going to unseal this, we'll make an opinion on this, but everything's open to the public prior to our decision? I mean, we're not talking about a child, we're not talking about sensitive information. We're talking
nuclear
about
launch codes.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about
run-of-the-mill emails.
George Myers, you're probably the most
often mentioned person in there, right?
Yeah.
Oh, no wonder it's sealed.
You are a danger to the community. Thank you, George.
No, listen, no. Let's just look at procedure. It goes sealed. They have to discuss it, look at it, and then make a decision that it not be sealed. They can't just say, oh, this is stupid, unseal it. They can't operate that way, and you need to recognize that.
All right.
They have to look at the data, look at the information, look at the evidence, and that's when they will come back and say,
But
this
George,
can't
he
be
also
sealed.
came back to Gaskugevich and said, there was no court docketed. There was, you went on CCAP. There was nothing. You couldn't find anything.
Yeah.
Right.
So it came back. Now at that point, why don't they just say, Judge, we want it all open. Send it to us all open. We'll make a decision on this.
I just think it was they're
I think the
going
word
easy on the judge.
The word he's looking for is complicit.
Well,
Correct.
yeah. The thing is they said, "Well, take another look at this."
Yeah.
I mean that's how
Right,
ridiculous it was. They said,
Yeah. But it
Take
also was a
another look at
courtesy to Gaskugevich to stop his hand and say, "What are you?"
Yeah.
As Harry eloquently put it in one of his requests to Gaskugevich. We won't use the term on the air, but why didn't I guess I go to and say the appeals court. How ridiculous this is from the very beginning, and the appeals court sees it and sends it back to the judge. To me, that was a courtesy. Judge,
Yes.
take a look here. We don't want to slap your hand.
they'd
with it.
essentially made a
Right.
decision at that
Yeah,
point. They were just
exactly.
trying to gradient work themselves into it.
To me, that's.
Well,
you
and
think
it-
they do that in a courtroom for the average citizen?
No,
who
they
broke
don't.
the law?
No, don't be
No.
silly. No, that was that's how outrageous it was. Without even conferring with each other and making a decision, they sort of did it anyway. Hey,
Yeah.
Judge, take another look
Right.
at that.
Okay.
That's the way I evaluate that. Now, eventually, they're going to look, and boy, they had better when they make that decision say, no, this should not be sealed.
And the real problem that we still have is Sandy is still underneath contempt proceedings.
That's right. That
In-
is
in
sealed
the Court
until
of
they make
Appeals.
that, till they
So-
make that official decision.
So here you have an illegal court conducting a sealed court on an open records case. They decide the city and Michael Cohn from the law firm in Milwaukee, they decide to proceed with contempt proceedings. The judge is all for it. They find her guilty in contempt of court because she went to the press saying, hey, my rights are being violated.
Well, she didn't actually
But-
go to the press. The press came to her, and she
Well, however that
willingly
happened.
Yeah.
Well, however
she spoke
that
to them a
happened.
little bit.
Right,
I mean,
we don't know
how that
she didn't really
It's
reveal
contempt.
anything.
no, she didn't reveal any of what they call quote
No.
privileged documents.
No, not at all. But all of this conversation that we're having right now is kind of prelude to the
Right.
complaint that you filed.
Right.
So there were-
we'll get down to the nitty gritty and not a complaint. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so much to this.
Now, this complaint, let's get a little more broad definition. This is a complaint to the city of Racine with regards to the activities of
Scott
city
Letteney,
attorney, right?
correct.
Scott Letteney, okay.
Yeah, and this complaint involves, I'm going to consider it fraud. It's what I consider what he did. He's abused his powers in office. He's negligent in his responsibilities. And it's a multi-fronted complaint with many issues that
Well,
Mr. Letteney's involved in.
It's obvious that he's the one that pushed for all these records to be sealed.
Well,
We know that it all originated with him.
he's still acting underneath a higher power, and that's
Correct.
the mayor.
Right. Exactly. I mean, he's
Yeah.
the arm that maybe did it, but Corey Mason, there's absolutely no doubt, is the one behind the sealing of these records and keeping Sandy's information, or keeping Sandy locked up tight. Because we did a show. It goes all the way back to, and you have it in your complaint, Machinery Row,
Correct.
where that information was, she brought up and said, hey, there's a fraudulent activity here at Machinery Row, millions of dollars are being wasted with hiring an agent, a straw man, to do the work that the city would do to avoid relocation costs. And then it went into, if I'm not mistaken, the other part was the open records case where he purposely goes out and shuts down.
Well, he has a
like,
history of denying or
Right.
stalling
And that's
open records requests.
documented
Yeah.
in multiple levels, including us.
Well, you also had thwarting the responsibilities of the council, abusive powers of the city attorney's office, negligence and oversight of Machinery Row, which you just mentioned. Thwarting the responsibilities of the council, that's an interesting one. And we all know what that's about. And
Well-
if you want to expound on that a little bit.
Yeah, what happens is the city council has certain responsibilities as government agency, within the branch of government, and it's part of a balancing act for the city. So you have your administrative branch, or your elected branch, which is Mayor Mason and his administrators, and then you have the city council that's supposed to be overseeing all this. And there's been a lot of activity to undermine the power of the city council to oversee the government. And this is just
That's
not
only
right.
been going on for a decade or so.
Yeah, there's been a genuine effort to turn the city council into a bunch of bobbleheads that simply
Right, to turn
nod and
the
say,
city
okay,
over to
whatever
the
you want to
mayor
do.
and the staff, and have the mayor and
They
staff
just,
run it.
basically they're trying to run common council as rubber stampers.
Right.
They just this is what we're going to do. Common council, rubber stamp it because we go into the next issue. The problem is
Well, so what you're saying is these rubber stampers rubber stamped illegal activity.
and yes, it's happened.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yep.
And whether they know it or not, whether they have a blind eye and a deaf ear to it, or if they're actually just willing participants in some of this stuff. So,
Well, and that's a good point, because I have seen things, and we've talked about points where individual aldermen will actually aid and abet in that attempting to diminish
Yes.
the power
Yep.
and the authority.
And
of the
when
common
it comes
council.
down to, let's just say, when we talk about FBI investigations, we talk about indictments, that doesn't hold water. You are an elected official. If you aid and abet, and you can't say, well, I didn't understand it, that's too bad. I was a speeding officer, I didn't know the speed limit. Well, that's too bad, you're still getting the ticket. I mean, it falls into that
Right.
mentality and that opinion of the court.
So if that standard is not enforced on the city council or on our elected officials, then basically there's a double standard operating in the community, and I think people are sensitive to the fact that that's really
That was
what's
one of the
going on.
complaints you made, too. They were trying to thwart the power of this. He
the
was
ci-
trying
yeah.
to thwart the power of the
Well,
common council.
there's an interesting remark, and he did a bio when he spoke at the municipalities convention or whatever.
Who's this now we're talking about?
Scott Letteney.
Okay.
When he spoke a few years ago, and he talked about what his experiences were, what his education was, so on and so forth, the fact that he likes to make salsa. And one thing that he mentioned was one of his activities is corralling elected officials. Now, what does that tell you about his attitude toward the city council or toward anybody,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
toward the people who are
gonna show that
represented
picture
by
of
those
Cowboy
elected
Letteney?
officials?
Howdy, buckaroos. Head Wrangler Scott Letteney here. Welcome to the Dude Ranch we tax wranglers like to call the sweetest little spread on the Great Lakes Basin. Maybe you've heard of us. That was a little cowboy humor there, friends. Try to keep up. Well, as an old Bronco buster, I often have greenhorns asking me what I consider dumb questions. One of the dumbest ones, and I hear it all the time, is, Scooter, what's the toughest breed there is to wrangle? You see why that's dumb? Who the hell cares what the toughest breed is? If you're smart like me, you're going to want to know what the easiest ones to wrangle are. I swear, some of you are walking around with your chaps on backwards. Now, all breeds look pretty much alike, but the ones I prefer are elected officials. Damn right. Hell, 235 years of elections has pretty much bred all of the brains right out of them. Most of them, anyways. Every now and again, you get one in the corral that just flat won't get in the truck to the packing plant. Sometimes a particularly stubborn one has me thinking about just riding off into the sunset.
But I mean that shows a real disrespect for representative government.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no way that's his role. It
No
just
way.
is
No,
not his
no,
role as a city attorney. Yeah, maybe as a private citizen, if you feel the government's getting out of sorts, like Harry does, and like some of the others
Right.
of us have done in the past. Yeah, that is your duty. I mean,
Well, I'm sure he would try
that's
to.
what it says in the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
All right?
I'm sure he would
So-
try to pass it off as a joke. I was just kidding.
Well, I don't know
It's
about
just a
that.
little bit
Oh,
of humor, but
Letteney?
it
Oh,
speaks
correct.
to what his mindset is, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, let's go. Let's take it to now, Harry. This complaint is filed with the Common Council. You went down, filed it. The Common Council then goes, or not the Common Council, but it's then by the was the head of the Common Council, Jason Meekma, refers it to the Ethics Committee. Now, last week our show was on the Ethics Committee, and our opinion is there's no way it should be at the Ethics
Well, it
Committee.
shouldn't be in the ethics committee. Basically, I've made a complaint of abuse of power, of fraud, of illegal proceedings, and really, I'm asking the Common Council to act on this, not forward it to another committee where it'll just die. Really, the Common Council really has the power and should undertake this complaint on their own volition.
Well, there's some interesting language in the city code about the ethics committee, and if an ethical violation is alleged and referred to the committee or the board, and they come back with the opinion of no ethical violations occurred, we recommend that you receive and file, then the council can just bury it.
Well,
now, our contention is that it's much broader than an ethics complaint by far. I mean, there's actually legal activity and breach of responsibility and so on and so forth that the ethics board has nothing to do with.
That belongs in a court.
Absolutely. But if the ethics board comes back with it in the code, they can say, well, the ethics board said, no, you don't need to bother with this. Then that gives the city council cover to say, we receive and file, which is basically bureaucratic doublespeak for
kick the can down the road.
Sweep it under the rug and hope it goes away.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Harry, do you know, or Jim, do you know what is the procedures in ethics, in the ethics committee? Is it anything like a court where you get to have a prosecution and defense?
Well, they do something. They're supposed to do that. First, it goes, I believe, to the ethics. Now, again, we're at this opinion that it should be. There's no way that should go there. But if it does go there, they review it, and if the information they feel is not pertinent or
substantiated,
then we can toss it out, and it goes into receive and file, and then it goes back and it becomes a receive and file at the Common Council.
Right.
So there's no recourse, I guess, for.
And that's the problem. That's how it differs from a court.
Listen, George, I've been through these ethics ones. I've watched them, and they're just an absolute joke. It's a joke. It's a rubber stamp. Nobody knows what the hell they're doing. It's all about, well, they're good people. I think they're good people, and we all think they're good people, and that's about the end of it. I mean, that's how it works. The court system in Racine is broken. It's been broken. No one can police themselves. There's absolutely no policing of any of the courts, the executive committees, the administration, the police force. And I want to get to one other question, Harry, but none of that's happening. So when you take it to the ethics committee, to me it was like a joke. And Jason Meekma is pitching it out there. The head of the Common Council should read that. He should be bringing that to the floor of the Common Council, call a committee to whole meeting, and have some major discussion, and bring that evidence into that floor and discuss that open to the public and let the public see that.
Well, let me build an analogy here that maybe will help the viewers a little bit. It's as if somebody drove over a pedestrian with their car, and whether they did it intentionally or not, they killed this individual. So there should be repercussions for that. But it's noted that the vehicle was the registration was expired. So they send it to the motor vehicle department and they say, the registration was expired, but we talked to the gentleman and it turns out that he had some work done by a mechanic and he was about to send in the registration, so we don't really see any violation here.
Right.
So we recommend that you just drop the whole case. The person is still dead.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Or even further, if they were to say, well, he's really a nice guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
So he's a hard worker.
And he wouldn't do anything wrong.
He let it ride. No, he could be a very nice guy, but he still made an illegal act.
See, this is the problem. They don't separate this fact of what law is and what the procedures and policies that all of us have to follow. Mm-hmm. Somehow they decided that we can work around that and we can manipulate that, and the Common Council just sits there and goes along with it. Truthfully, I mean, if it comes down hard, and I think at some point there will be, but those Common Council members are in for a big surprise, because a lot of it is where they have been abetting with the administration to do cover-up. Now, Harry, I got a question. This is one of mine. Is you're somewhat familiar with law enforcement, obviously. There's been a complaint, and Dennis Monti came on his show, I don't know, maybe 40 episodes back, and brought up a complaint that he filed, and this would have been in April of 2017, on Machinery Row in particular, in RDA. Nothing's been done with that complaint.
That oftentimes happens.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to realize that many of these different branches of government are complicit with each other. And they like to just throw things under the rug and pretend like it never happened. The Machinery Row complaint that you're talking about, filed by Dennis Monti, has a lot of valid points to it that really needs to be investigated.
I think one of the problems there is that if that complaint is honored and responded to, that's going to make law enforcement look like a bunch of goofballs, because it's like, my God, here's some serious illegal activity going on, and we had to depend on a citizen to file
but
it.
you're forgetting.
So I think part of what's going on
You're
is they're-
forgetting that they want to go get the 22-year-old that's got marijuana.
No, I'm
and
not
bust them
forgetting
for the
that at all. I'm
$25.
not
That's what
forgetting
they
that
want
at
to do.
all. Yeah,
They don't want to take on something like this.
Yeah.
No.
It's-
See, this is a
it's too
huge case,
complicated
and this goes into this is like a spider web, and it's going to go in a lot of different directions,
Right.
and there's a lot of embarrassment going to happen to a lot of people. And I agree, Harry, that it's easier to go pick up some kid. And I'll tell you, I've filmed a lot of court cases. I've never seen more bumbling idiots sometimes in those courts than, I mean, you think the criminal's dumb, and some of them are almost superior. The stupidity in some criminals is beyond even scope. But sometimes in law enforcement, the stupidity is so ridiculous. So to say that, well, he's okay. No, this whole system is broken. It's a broken system. When you have an incarceration rate that we have in the city of Racine, you've created a mill of the lower end of our society rolling through the legal system, and the upper end doesn't get touched. And I don't care what they do.
True.
Yep. So there's a double standard in the community? Is that what you're referring to?
Now, I'm probably going to get a ticket now.
Harry, just one real quick question.
Yes,
here.
George.
You know, we talked about the Dennis Monte complaint, and it just getting swept under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a legal procedure for him to take, or is it time to get placards and go out in front of the courthouse?
Well, basically, that's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have
Which
to.
one?
You're going to have to get the placards. You're going to start. You're going to have to start marching because he shipped that complaint to the sheriff's department, to the district attorney's office. I know Patricia Hansen had seen the complaint. Schmaling, his office, got the complaint.
Police department has had it.
The police department had it. And none of them really acted on it
Department of Justice has had it. In
well,
Madison.
that just tells you how unaccountable our governmental agencies are. And it's one of the problems that we have. They don't want to police themselves.
And you've had some success with the placards in front of the courthouse.
Yeah, I mean, I marched in 2011 and 2012. I was in front of the courthouse. Yes, and that's how you get the people's attention to this. And so if you can't get them out through the process of filing complaints and going through the avenues that we have for citizens to try to make changes, then you have to resort to the voters to vote these people out. And that's what we have right now. We have to move the voters to get these people out because self-policing doesn't work.
No.
Good point.
And placards
Good
is
point,
like the step before the pitchforks and the torches.
Basically, yes.
Well, we don't have to take that step. We just go skip that one and get
Right.
the voters out.
Well, we got some.
Yeah,
I think you're right. We need to get new people in office, and we need to get educated people in office that can make a change.
Yeah.
And we have a couple
Absolutely.
good one there already.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been pushing hard on one of my websites to write in Sandy Widener for mayor, and there's a movement growing on that because I think Sandy's heard the voices of the people. That there's a lot of people asking her to throw her hat in the ring to run for mayor. And I think we're having great success in moving forward in that agenda. And I think we can give Corey Mason better than a run for his money. Personally, I think Corey Mason is beatable.
Well, I think he was beatable last time, quite honestly. But when it came down to the final stages of that contest, there was an awful lot of out-of-state money that came in. There were professional political consultants that came in.
And you're forgetting the most important thing that
Well, I
election
wasn't done, but go ahead.
became tainted because they had filed ethics charges against her.
Absolutely.
And the Racine press grabbed hold of that. Normally, the press doesn't want to take on any type of news of that involving ethics complaints or dishonesty. Shortly before election because they don't want to have that. As part of the voting conscience of the people, but yet the Racine Journal-Times elected to do that and broadcast that, when really there wasn't any substantial complaints on it. I mean, the open court now has proved that, where the court is 98%, maybe 99% of the court record is now open to the public.
Okay, so we're talking about an election that is now 2 weeks from tomorrow. And that's not a lot of time, but I've heard that there is like there's a real mobilization going on in this community. Yeah,
A movement.
yeah, and it's going to be quite something because this is a situation that very rarely gets experienced, where a write-in candidate is not just present in the race, but has a solid chance of defeating the incumbent. So it's going to be an interesting election.
You know,
It's
we
gonna
got
be an interesting
contacted
process.
too. Talking Racine got contacted too about some people coming on the show, and I mean, if they come on, it's explosive. You know, I can tell you that. So we'll just let it live.
Well, the thing that one of the conversations I had with Alderman Sandy Widener, I said, if you'd be elected mayor, would you serve? And she says yes.
Yeah. I
And
spoke
that's
with
important
her.
to know. This isn't. This is just wasting your time. This is a real opportunity for Racine to change its course.
Yeah, I spoke with her about that too, and she is not somebody who was enthused about campaigning.
She
But-
hasn't campaigned.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, and
Actually,
I have great respect for her. She's respecting the integrity of the system, but I think that the people recognize that the integrity of the system has been thoroughly trashed, and they're looking to her as somebody who can come in and restore faith in government, honestness,
Open,
openness,
transparent
and
government.
transparency in government. That those hot government signs you see around.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
All right. Well, hey Harry,
Yep.
it's been
Thank you,
it's
Ken.
been a pleasure
Yeah,
having
Jim.
you here.
Very-
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Harry, for coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you, viewers.
And
For having me.
I think we're all going to be. Are you going up to Madison for the?
That's the plans, yeah.
Yeah.
I just found out that you can reserve a table now.
Okay.
So I'm going to
So
go ahead and get
we're
that,
all going
get
to
that
see
done.
each other again up
That'd
at
be
the.
cool if we could all get it
At the Whoopi Awards.
Yeah, the Open Government Awards up in Madison, at which Sandy Widener will receive her award as the Whistleblower of the Year, and which Corey Mason and Scott Letteney have the opportunity to receive their award.
If they would like to go up there and get their Nopi and Dopey awards,
Yes, the Nopi Award for no friend of open government. Thinking they might not be there. But we'll be here next Monday, and we hope you are too.